So it is so important before we begin any session at Royal Roads University that we do an acknowledgement of traditional lands. Royal Roads University acknowledges that the campus is located on the traditional lands of the Cossapsum, Esquimalt, and Lekwungen Songhees ancestors and families. It is with gratitude that we now learn and work here, where the past, present, and future of Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, faculty, and staff come together. It is a beautiful sunny day today. I'm working from home, but I've been on campus all week and it has just been gorgeous. So just wonderful, and I'm so glad to be joining all of you today. Just jumping in and looking at the chat, we have a social worker who lives on the unceded Coast Salish territories of the Lekwungen and Wasanich nations. We have an RN, CCC for COVID Immunization and Testing Center at Fraser Health in Abbotsford. We have somebody coming from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, a healthcare leader and keenly interested in the program. We have somebody else zooming in from Greater Vancouver, BC area, from the traditional unceded territories of the Squamish Nation. Wonderful. We have somebody from Community Health in the Northwest Territories, Waterloo, Ontario. This is wonderful to see people joining us from all over. Thank you, and keep the introductions coming. We'll be monitoring the chat. So today's session is the Master of Arts in Leadership, and we're going to be focusing on the health specialization and the new elective, considerations for health system renewal. And with me today, I have Dr. Cheryl Heykoop, the program head. I have Dr. Phil Cady, an adjunct faculty. I have Erin Reid, a current Master's of Leadership in Health student, and my name is Emera Angus, and I'm an education specialist. In addition, we also have our enrollment team on the call, so any questions that you pop in the chat, they'll be monitoring it and answering them there. And we also have my colleague Francisco here who will be behind the scenes, so if you have any tech-related things come up, feel welcome to direct message Francisco. All right. So if you want to use the reactions feature and give me a thumbs up if you're ready to keep going with today's presentation. Okay, looks like everybody is good. So the agenda, welcome and introductions, that's what we're doing right now. So thank you for introducing yourself in the chat. We're going to briefly go over the Royal Roads experience, but most of the Royal Roads experience will kind of be integrated into when we talk about the program and the program overview. We're going to be talking about the new elective considerations for health system renewal. We'll go through the admissions and application, and we'll have questions and conversation at the end. But as I mentioned, while the questions come up, feel welcome to pop them in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them as they come up. So Royal Roads University, as I mentioned, we're located in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. It's a beautiful sunny day today. Right now, if you look at the top left there, that is Hatley Castle. So we have a castle on campus, and this castle overlooks a beautiful lagoon, which is the bottom left image, which is the Esquimalt Lagoon. And many of our programs, they're really geared for working professionals. So often it'll be a blended program where you will be doing much of your learning at home online, and then you'll be coming to campus for immersive residencies. So we'll be talking more about what this program looks like around that structure, but we have really been teaching and learning at Royal Roads for over 25 years online. So we know how to use online technology. We got lots of great feedback that we know how to teach online, and our students really enjoy that. And I just want to mention that here at Royal Roads, like, there's not that division between theory and practice. It's really integrated. So what you're learning in the classroom, you're able to apply in your organization, in the world, pretty much the very next day. And you'll be learning from industry professionals as well. And a picture that's just one of my favorite is the top right. That is the bridge in the Japanese garden here on campus. We have a beautiful garden on campus. We have hundreds of meters of trails around campus that you can go hiking on. It's really a beautiful place to explore when you're here. So now I'm so pleased to welcome Dr. Cheryl Heykoop, Dr. Phil Cady, and Erin Reid up to speak more about the program overview.
Thanks, Amira. So wonderful to be here. And I mean, I'm definitely an advocate of Royal Roads. I actually completed the doctoral program myself. So I love this place. And I love this place because the learning is place-based, but also because it is focused on supporting scholars and practitioners and really bringing that together. And as an instructor in the program and a faculty member, one of the things I love the most is that we are all co-learners together. So I get so much, and I'm sure Phil can speak to this too, we get so much out of the experience. So it isn't like we have instructors who are sages on the stage. It really is about learning together and exploring how we can navigate challenges. And I think in the context of healthcare, the field is shifting and changing so rapidly. So this program offers an opportunity to really explore some of those challenges and understand, if I look at this through a systems lens, what might be happening? How might I address this through creativity and working collaboratively with colleagues? And how can I explore an orientation to possibility to achieve results and success within my organization? So quick overview there. And maybe we'll just skip to the next slide there, Mara. So it is a competency-based program, and we have 6 competency domains really focused on understanding self and personal mastery, working together with others, so learning and collaboration. We also are really focused on leading positive organizational and personal change. So within that, you know, what are the things that I can do personally to support change? And then how can we collectively as a team navigate change, and what might that look like? We also have a competency focused on learning, creativity, and innovation. So how can we look at challenges through a creative lens or orientation? And another competency focused on systems thinking. So how can I apply a systems thinking orientation to the problems that we currently face in our organization, and maybe see it through a different lens. And of course, with any academic program here at Royal Roads, we also have a competency focused on academic writing and critical thinking, and ensuring that the writing that we do is up to the academic standards, but it's also applied and relevant to your actual workplace. So, and the reason I say that, I think it's really important that the assignments that you do throughout the program and the activities really support you to think critically about what's happening in your organization, but then also to apply the learning in practice. And I think that's one of the things that we often hear is one of the big benefits of the program is that it's not just waiting to apply the learning, it's applying the learning in real time. So we'll skip to the next slide. So Amara was saying that it's a blended program, and it's a 2-year program, and there's 36 credits. We have online learning for most of the program, but we have two-week intensives, and those oftentimes happen in person, but because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have been hosting those residencies virtually, but we are looking at hosting in the fall in person again. So that's this blended model where you're working online and then we come together face to face, and then you head back into your workplace, apply the learning, and continue to engage online. And that happens twice over the duration of the program. And then there are different completion options. So some people would like to do a thesis because they'd like to continue with, maybe doing a PhD or a doctorate, or would really like to explore that. Or there's an engaged leadership project. But both of the projects that you would explore within the context of the program are engaged, action-oriented projects that really are focused on addressing a challenge that you and your organization are facing, and considering how can you move towards change around that challenge. So we'll just skip to the next slide. And here's just a quick schedule at a glance. So there's a quick introduction to academic integrity, and then we have our blended experience. So there are 5 weeks 5 weeks online where you're getting to know your cohort, you're building community, you're engaging with some of the readings, and then we come together for a 2-week intensive, and then you go back home and you're integrating that learning. And again, these 3 first courses are focused on personal leadership and learning, so personal mastery. Who am I as a leader? What are my vision and values? Communication and leadership in teams. So how do I communicate and work with others? And then how do I navigate systems? And those are the 3 courses. And then following that, you head into a distance course. And that course is called Concepts and Theories of Leadership in Organizations, which is really focused on the academic literatures, and I say literatures or knowledges related to leadership. And in that course, you're looking at leadership through a traditional leadership lens, but also an Indigenous leadership lens and a global leadership lens. And then landing on what is your orientation to leadership based on those theories and concepts. And then following that, you have an opportunity to choose an elective that really suits your learning and your needs. So there is a self-directed studies where you get to choose a topic that's relevant to you and your learning. There's an action-oriented research course. So if you're looking at doing a thesis, you need to take that course to really get an understanding of the fundamentals of research. Or there is this new elective that we're talking about today, which is considerations for health systems renewal. So just after I finish going through the schedule, Phil and Erin will speak more to the elective. And then following your elective experience, we then come back together. So we spend 8 weeks online, really talking about your capstone and what would you like to do for your project and how might you approach that and what methods might you use and what's your orientation to ethics to that project. So we spend 8 weeks online and then we come together to campus, and those 2 weeks are really focused on understanding and really workshopping your capstone project and what you'd like to do, but also thinking about the application of that within an organizational context and an organizational leadership context. So that's your blended experience too. And then following that, you've got 2 weeks online to work on finalizing your proposal, and then you head off into your leadership project, which is either an engaged leadership project or a thesis. So that's a quick overview of the program. And I know that this probably feels a little bit like drinking from a fire hose, but we wanted to give you a quick overview of the program so you know a little bit more about what to expect. And now I'm going to pass it, I think next slide, please. Which I think is passing it over to Phil to talk about this new elective that we developed in the MA Leadership Health Program. And maybe just before I do that, I just want to acknowledge that this is the first elective that is health specific in the program currently. And it was such an incredible opportunity to work with Phil on the design of this course. And I think it really has addressed a need in the program. So just really raising my hands to you, Phil, and all the work that you did to make this course come to life. And over to you to tell us a bit more about it and what it's been like.
Thanks, Cheryl. Folks, feel free to jump in anytime. I find this stuff pretty exciting, pretty interesting and relevant. It's new, it's real, it's applied. And, you know, I recall back in January, February of this year, Cheryl and I having conversations about who might we engage, you know, in a series of interviews to tell us what is life going to be like from a leadership perspective now during the pandemic, as well as post-pandemic. What are the issues leaders are facing across the country, but also across the continuum of care? So not specifically on acute care or community-based care, but also pre-hospital care, policy, government, everybody, you know, who touches the healthcare world. We wanted to invite them to tell us what's on their radar, what's getting attention, what are the challenges, as well as what some of the successes and heartwarming areas are as well. So early this year, we reached out to a series of healthcare leaders and asked for their willingness to share their perspective in an hour-long interview. And we took a look at the transcripts and found that there are clear themes that were emerging, not unlike some of the work that folks do in their second term when they look at their own interviews or focus groups or however they're engaging some staff or participants. And some of those interviews were just quite profound in terms of the real-time application and the issues that leaders are facing today. It was very difficult to separate the emotion and humanity of healthcare from the academic side. People were critical and at the same time open and positive. And what was really resounding was this notion of being optimistic and orienting themselves to possibility. Nobody said it's hopeless and I'm out of here. Everybody said, wow, look at these challenges in front of us. And these are the things we need to be developing leaders for, because they are going to inherit some of these challenges in the years to come. So from those interviews, we identified 8 course units across our 10 weeks of course contact and student effort within the curriculum. So if you can go to next slide, please, Mara. Here are the 8 different units or themes that emerged from the participants that formed weekly or bi-weekly activities within the course. So you've heard me mention an orientation to possibility. And here we start with what I found was a pretty compelling article about Canada's healthcare system. In fact, the article was published by the Canadian Society of Physician Leaders, and it's called "The Health System is on Fire, and it was Predictable." And out of that comes this orientation to what's called the panarchy cycle, where we look at the creative destruction that happens in some of our systems, but more importantly, the renewal that can come from this turbulence that's in our environment. Another clear theme that came up, and it's very large in terms of its applicability and breadth and specific areas, is this whole notion of health, equity within health systems. We've seen a lot happen within the media, a lot of public inquiry over the past few years, and of course the In Plain Sight report forms an element of our core readings around what leadership, what our role is as leaders in addressing some of these health equity concerns. I'll talk a little bit about how we structure some of these activities, because it's pretty exciting when we see that it's not just academic and reading based, but also conversation and workplace focused. Another one was this large and widely acknowledged gap that we have and challenge that we have both presently and into the future around health human resources planning. And so we focus specifically on some activities that were happening with Healthcare Can around advocacy at the federal level for a comprehensive strategic approach to health human resource planning, but also what's happening local within our own workplaces and our own hospitals, community settings, and what have you. Another one that came up really quite clear, in particular over the past couple of years, was the notion of patterns within relational systems. And one quote for a comment actually came from a CEO in a hospital who was saying during the pandemic, they could no longer just say, we're going to focus on the longer term strategic issues from a governance perspective. They also had to look at what's happening practically at the same time we're planning strategically. And that changed the context for a lot of folks who saw themselves previously as being totally responsible for their organization, now having to work horizontally in ways that they hadn't before. And that changes the way that we approach leadership and some of the phenomena that we might experience. Very clearly, we saw that we can't expect people to innovate and transform their systems without support. And so we have a week focused on engaging in both readings, but also colleagues in other areas about how they're supporting innovation. And this particular pilot, we engaged the primary care support unit, innovation support unit at UBC, to share some of the things that they're doing as well. So it was great to work from our perspective, to work with colleagues in other universities as well, to be able to bring value to students and learning in the program. Polarity thinking is coming up more and more and more as a practical tool or a practical approach to seemingly intractable issues that folks are facing. For example, my guess is something that you're all facing, that we're all facing, is how do we balance the polarity of staff well-being and patient well-being? When are we over-focusing, and how do we bring that back into balance? That's just one example. We take a look at cost and quality, project-driven change, framework-driven change, and a lot of others that are out there as well. Trauma-informed leadership came up loud and clear, loud and clear. In fact, it was one of our most impactful weeks within the 10 weeks, but we'll hear from Erin about what that might mean. And it's about how leaders need to be sensitive to trauma in all its manifestations, both cultural trauma, as well as trauma through the pandemic and trauma through some of the things that healthcare workers have been experiencing in the workplace over time. And last but not least, there was a wide recognition that the complexity of the issues that we're facing can't be addressed on our own. We need to reach out to others, not only building coalitions from the LEADS framework, of course, and some of you may be familiar with that, but also other networks that are out there that we can tap into to help support our initiatives, to deepen our learning ongoing into the future, and associations that we might like to be part of. So those are the 8 themes that came up out of the interviews, and then we made those into weekly modules because leaders are saying these are the things that we should be paying attention to now and in the near future. Okay, Mara, if you can switch to the next slide. So here's how the 10 weeks worked within this course. So during the 10 weeks, we had 6 weekly guest speakers, one speaker each week that could speak to, with depth, the topic of the week. So we would have senior healthcare leaders, and I was very grateful, very, very grateful to see people give their time willingly and with enthusiasm, passion, and energy to help students in the program. So this is where we got a really neat opportunity to blend our academic reading with perspective from practitioners in the field, as well as asking the students to scan their workplace to find out how these issues are showing up as well. So I got pretty excited about that because it's not hypothetical. These were real issues, so they're not hypothetical. We also had 2 mini weekend workshops, 3-hour workshops, because they were skills-based and applied. Here's a construct or a framework. How do we apply that and get into some Q&A, and also link those to assignments where people were looking critically at what's going on around them. So those are essentially the structures: readings, posts, guest speakers, collegial conversations, assignments, and application to the workplace. The 3 assignments that encompass this particular course evidence, if you will, in addition to your own participation and contribution during these seminars. It's not a passive process by any means. It's fully engaged, and we look forward to that. It's an exciting part of the program. First one was about leader centrality. Where are you in your social system, and what does the social system need? So we get you thinking about your workplace and where you are. You're locating yourself in your system. Second, it was a team-based activity at mapping polarities at the micro level, that's the local level, the meso, maybe this is your unit or department or hospital or clinical setting or organization, but also broadly around what's happening provincially or regionally or nationally that you might be aware of. And this is your final assignment for that particular course. So those are the building blocks of 534, considerations for health systems renewal. And Cheryl, I'm going to hand over to you right now, if that's okay, because we have a really neat opportunity to hear somebody who just finished last week this very course.
Thank
Cheryl.
you, Phil. Thank you, Phil. And thank you again for your enthusiasm for the course. And I think, it's what makes the program and the course what it is. I mean, we have passionate faculty like yourself. So thank you for all that you do. And as Phil mentioned, we have Erin Reid is here with us today to talk about her experience in the elective in LEAD 534, but also in the program more broadly. So I just want to say welcome, Erin, and thank you so much for taking time out of what sounds like a very, very busy schedule. So welcome, and really, really grateful that you're here.
Great, thank you, Cheryl, and thank you, Phil. Good afternoon, everybody. I am grateful for this opportunity to speak about my experience so far in this program. As Phil mentioned, we did just finish on Sunday. I submitted, I think, at 10:34 a.m. my final paper. Too soon to ask about grades, maybe? Anyhow, I'm just going to address some of the questions that are already on the screen here. So getting involved in the leadership health specialization program at Royal Roads, it kind of came about at a time in my life where I was recently back to work after a maternity leave, and I could notice it was just, we'd been into the pandemic for just a few months, and so I'd returned after maternity leave, and things had changed so much, and I could feel this pretty immense shift amongst my colleagues, amongst the hospital. There was just so much change, and I just thought, I need to have a better understanding of how this works and what I can do as an individual in my organization. I was not in a leadership role at that time. And so it was just something I felt drawn to. I'd heard remarkable things about the Leadership Masters Rural Roads, and I thought, why not now? There have been moments along the last year where I thought, yeah, I probably should have put more thought into that, because it does have days where you're like, oh my God. Having said that, it's been one of the greater experiences I've had so far. I've met some pretty remarkable professors and instructors. That my peers and colleagues through the program have been so supportive and encouraging, and we come from so many different areas of health that I've just learned so much. And a few months into the program, I actually was awarded a job as a clinical nurse leader here in my organization. And while I'm on the kind of the bottom of the totem pole as far as leadership goes throughout the organization, it's been actually very timely for me to learn about leadership in healthcare while I'm a new leader in healthcare, and to be able to hear from directors and executive about the problems that we're facing, and me going, oh, have you ever considered, let's talk about polarities for a second here, and just having that opportunity to put this new knowledge that I have into practice and to implement it here, and to also have an understanding. You know, we talk about systems and systems thinking, and to realize the impact on, you know, one small unit and the impact that it has on the entire healthcare system. So yeah, it's been super interesting. And then this elective specifically also was very timely and super educational. The healthcare leaders from across Canada that took the time to sit with us and share their stories, to share their experiences, to field our questions. It was just so valuable. And I know Phil heard it every week that we wanted more time. And there's just we all are so passionate and have so many questions about what we can do to implement change and how we can protect our staff along the way through this very, very bumpy road that we're on right now. So yeah, it was just, yeah, this elective, I'm grateful for it. And I encourage, if it's something that you're interested, if you're interested in implementing change for leadership in healthcare, it's a good opportunity for you. So I'm not sure if there's anything else that you would like me to speak about, Cheryl or Phil or.
Erin, I'm curious. Can you talk a little bit about what was it like for you? What is it like for you to work and learn concurrently, managing busy family, all that's happening within an intense environment at work for you? What's that like?
You really want me to talk about that piece, or the realities of the program? Okay. So I work full time. From September until December, I was a shift worker. I did 12-hour shifts working in critical care here in Victoria. And in December, I moved into a leadership role. So I work full time, Monday to Friday, 7 to 3. I have 2 small kids at home. They're 8 and 3. And a husband who is getting this degree as much as I am. He worked so hard at picking up the slack of what I normally would do. So we get home at the end of the day, I spend a short period of time with my family, and then I do schoolwork, and then I help with bedtime, and then I do schoolwork, and then I get up at 5:30 in the morning and I come to work and I get home, and it's just kind of on repeat. It's interesting because my husband and I actually had a really long chat about it last night, and just the feeling of having the term end and just this ability to come home at the end of the day and know that I have, you know, hours that I can spend with my family. We went to the park with my daughter, and having that opportunity, and him saying, like, just so you know, I wouldn't change it, and I want you to keep going. And so having a supportive community, people that are encouraging, they're willing to pick up those extra pieces. I don't want to brag, but he makes my lunch for me when I for the next day for work. Like he's like maybe a little bit more supportive than most people would be, but my mom lives in our suite. She takes care of my kids when he's not able to, you know, she's willing to come over and help out with any extra stuff as well. So I have to say, like, having a supportive community is crucial, 100%. It has been for me. Some weeks are harder than others, and I think that's just the nature of when you're doing a graduate program. Like some weeks are going to be lighter, the readings will be a little bit lighter, and then the next week you might cry a little. And I think that that's just something that you can prepare yourself for. My working environment, I've been, my manager is incredibly supportive. We're slammed at work today, and she's like, it's fine, just close your door, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it, we got it. What can I do for you? So having a supportive professional environment is also very kind. As far as like the academic workload goes, I think like in my experience, my classmates, my peers in the program, we're all, this is what we chose. We chose to learn about this information and material. And so I think like, I haven't found it overwhelming. I mean, when we first talked about systems, it was like just way over my head. But once you get the hang of it, then as one Les Fisher says, once you see systems, you can't unsee systems. They're everywhere. And so, you know, like the material is interesting, it's relevant, it's important. And so I didn't find it overwhelming because I was interested in what I was reading. And, you know, if it is confusing, there's so many people that you can reach out to and be like, hey, can you talk this through with me? I'm just not getting it. Like, you know, we have Zoom meetings. I met with my teammates multiple times over Zoom to just say, hey, like, I'm really not getting this paper. Can you walk this through with me? And having learning partners to help get you through that process is great. Yeah. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you so much, Erin. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so good to hear more about the actual lived experience of the programs. So thank you for sharing, and you know, and all of it, you know, the challenges, but also the things that go so well. So yeah, thank you.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't share that Erin was also sharing some of her learning with other members of her family, as I think one of your kids helped out and drew a polarity map. A polarity map. You're supposed to be getting the degree, but your children are producing the assignments. So I'm curious about
that. He kept kind of peeking into the office in my house. And I was like, what is this? And he'd look at the map and go back out and then come back. And I said, finally, I just said, here, take this. I don't need it right now. And he came back and he produced this 8-year-old crayon hand drawing of a polarity map. Yeah, it was very cute.
That's an adorable story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you, Erin, for sharing your experience. It was really great to hear firsthand what it was like for you. And I really appreciate how genuine and honest you are about it. I know everybody in the room appreciates that as well. So I'm going to jump into the how to apply side of things. But if there's any questions for Erin or any for Phil or Cheryl, pop them in the chat too, because I know they're having a look at the chat right now, and they can answer it there, or we can always talk about it at the end in our questions and conversation time. So how to apply. This is an important part, but once you get this out of the way, you've done it once, you don't have to do it again. So health specialization admission here at Royal Roads University, we have both standard and flexible admission because we really understand that everybody who is joining us today in the room has different experiences. They come with different backgrounds, different work experience, just different lives. And that's actually really what makes Royal Roads such a special institution, is the diversity of the people that join us. So we do have something we call standard admission. So what our standard admission for the health specialization program is, it's a 4-year or comparable undergraduate degree in a related field from a recognized post-secondary institution with a minimum GPA of a B+. and 5 years of leadership experience in a healthcare organization or leadership in a health-related capacity. So that is our standard admission. And we have so many people who do not fit into standard admission, and that is okay. So while you're reading the slide or hearing me speak or looking at our website, make sure that you know that we assess every single application case by case. So do not self-select yourself out at all, because I want to stress, like, if you have questions about whether you have the applicable requirements, please connect with us directly, because we'd like to talk to you about your specific situation and make sure that we can look and assess your background. So for flexible admission, if you meet the standard admission requirements but have fewer than 5 years of leadership experience, you can still apply. And if you have 5 years of professional experience in healthcare or health-related organization, including 2 years of leadership experience. And if you don't have a 4-year undergraduate degree, you can still apply as well if you have 10 years of professional healthcare or health-related experience, including at least 5 years of leadership experience. And I also want to mention that given the diversity of healthcare leaders, a variety of experiences are acceptable as well. So I'm hoping, Carla, you'll pop a link in the chat to the specific application and admission requirements for this program, because we do go into detail more on our website. But I do want to kind of stress that there really is such a diversity of roles and positions that can come into this program. And while positional leadership in a healthcare organization is recognized, roles of significant influence in health-related community organizations, successful advocacy experiences, and health promotion are also possible. And we particularly welcome applicants who have worked in underserved and challenging areas of healthcare, such as in Indigenous communities and emergency medicine, and healthcare-related experiences that do not include formal supervisory roles, but require exceptional critical thinking and decision-making skills, such as emergency nursing and various physician roles. They're also welcome and adjudicated on a case-by-case basis. So summarizing what I'm saying is, please reach out to us. Know that we accept a variety of experiences and examples, and the definition is very open to what that means to have healthcare experience. So absolutely connect with us if you do have any questions. And I know Carla popped her information in the chat, and she's a great resource to help you navigate if this is the right fit for you. Awesome. So I also want to talk about how to apply. So this is a fun part as well. So the online application, you go onto our website, you start up an online application for the program. There's a small fee of $131.39 to start your application. And then once you started your application, we do require some supporting documents. So what this might look like is things like official transcripts. So that's any of your past post-secondary credentials. We want you to send them to us from the post-secondary institution, either in a sealed envelope, or they can also send it to us by email. But you can go onto the websites of any past post-secondary and start that process through them. The fun part, though, is the personal statement. So this is really your why. So it's a 2-page letter, and you're really going to just dive into why is this the right program for you. And I highly recommend looking on the website, because we've outlined, so you can actually treat it like an assignment. We've outlined questions like, what is your motivation for seeking entrance into this program? What is your experience working in teams? What do you hope to learn from this program? What are your gifts and skills that you will bring to this program? What's the scope of your leadership experience, and things like that. So it's really a way for us to really understand who you are, and for you to be able to showcase your experience and why it's a good fit for this program. We also ask that you submit a writing sample. So there's 3 different ways that you can do this. So it's either satisfied from a recent writing sample from your academic work, if you've produced any academic work in the last 2 years. And if not, that's okay too, because you can also write a 500-word essay. And it's an academic essay, I should mention, and it's addressing the question, what is my leadership philosophy? And in this essay, you would include any academic books and peer-reviewed articles and relate them to your experience. So that's another option to produce a writing sample. Or you can also take academic writing and critical thinking course that we offer here at Royal Roads through our continuing study. So as you can see, there's a lot of options to provide that writing sample. And also a detailed resume. So this is another way for us to really understand you as the individual. So we want you to really go into detail. So it's more than just that one pager that you would maybe use to apply for a job. Like, we want you to dive in, tell us all about your education. We want to know all about your work experience. If you can kind of go into detail, showing where the leadership role was, and maybe if there's any roles that you kind of grew into a leadership capacity. So we want you to demonstrate that. Any voluntary or unpaid experience. We want to know about professional memberships and affiliations, how you are with computers. And don't worry, we outline this all on the website, so you don't have to remember this or even open up this webinar again and take notes. I promise it's all on the website. And then lastly, we ask that you submit 2 letters of reference. So these letters should be completed by somebody in your professional network. And basically, we ask that it's not a family member, but somebody that knows you and can speak to your knowledge, skills, and ability to complete a rigorous academic program. And if any questions are coming up while I'm speaking about this, pop them in the chat too, because we can absolutely clarify. Okay, so upcoming intakes. We actually have an intake for this September. So September 19th, 2022 is the start date, and the application deadline is August 19th, 2022. So you have a few months to complete your application, and that is the next intake. So if that's a little too soon, or you're not quite ready to jump into the program, but you are really excited to be a part of this, we also have another start date the following year in September of 2023. And the application deadline is June. And you don't have to wait to application deadlines to submit your application. You can do it now. So if you're feeling keen and excited, just after this webinar, jump on and get your application started. And so we do have other leadership offerings. This is the Masters of Leadership Health Specialization, but we also have a Masters of Leadership in Executive Education, or pardon me, MALXL, Executive Leadership. It's a tongue twister, as well as we have our Masters of Leadership. So you can see the other leadership offerings there, and we keep our website fully up to date too. So all of the deadlines and start dates are on our website.
I just think I want to reinforce what you were saying there too about starting applications. If you're thinking you're interested, definitely starting the application process now, because you can continue to add bits to it. So it doesn't have to, you don't have to get everything ready and then submit. So if you're interested, definitely encourage you to get started. And if you do have any questions along the way, don't hesitate to reach out to the team. But also, if you want to, you have program specific questions, as program head, I'm happy to have a conversation with you and explore, if it's the right fit, when's the right time. Like, really happy to have those conversations. So don't hesitate to reach out, and I'll just throw my email in the chat.
Thank you, Cheryl. So I actually saw a question come up in the chat, which is perfect timing for the slide about is there support available for prospective students? And in regards to financial aid, there absolutely is. So we have a lot of support here at Royal Roads, because we want to support you the whole way through, while you're making the decision to apply for a program, once you're accepted and getting into the program, while you're a student afterwards. So we just continue to want to support you through the whole process. So we have student engagement teams. We have support with international student services, Indigenous student services. We have a recreation center as well, so you can support that side of your overall health. We have a career learning and development. We have counseling services, accessibility services, and we do have financial aid and awards. So I'm going to jump into financial aids and awards, because it is an important question, and I know it's important to start the planning process now as well. So the financial aid and awards specialists are really knowledgeable in all different types of loans, awards, scholarships, and other funding. I really recommend looking at it now while you're starting your application. If you go to their website, they have all the different things that you can kind of look through of what would apply to your specific situation. And if you're not sure, you can always set up an appointment as well, a one-on-one with a financial aid and award specialist, and you can talk about your needs, and they can kind of help you navigate what would be the right fit for you. So definitely start with their website, and from there you can set up an appointment. And we are here to support you. And I hope by the end of this session, at this point, you know that we are here to support you and we want to help you. Carla's email is in the chat. Cheryl's email is in the chat. You can also reach out to us, our enrollment services here as well, learn.more@royalroads.ca. and we can answer your questions through that, or you can set up an appointment with us to speak one-on-one. And I'm just so excited to also mention, check out our blog. This is something that's been going on for a few years. And if you check out our blog, there's definitely features that we talk about our health specialization on the School of Leadership blog. So I check it out regularly as well. There's lots of great reads. Okay, and now I'm going to invite Phil and Cheryl and Erin back up, and we can kind of answer questions as they come up. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. Okay, I know Phil and Cheryl, you've probably had an eye on the chat for the last few minutes. Is there anything that's come up that you'd like to kind of address, or I can always dig through and see any questions too?
Yeah, there is a question here about capstone projects. So those are your capstone, your final projects. And, you know, can you conduct a capstone within your own organization, or can you do it in other places? And so while we encourage you to explore how you might apply it within your own organization, we have many students who choose to conduct their capstone with another organization. And while we don't offer support in terms of identifying those organizations, your cohort is a wealth of experience and knowledge, and your faculty to identify some places where you might want to look if you want to work outside your organization. And some people know that they'd like to make a career transition. They'd like to move away from the organization they're currently with. So sometimes they actually approach who they'd like to work with next and see if they might be able to do a capstone with them. Or if someone's looking at working, say, with a nonprofit, for example, they might try and do it within that context. So it really depends on what you're seeking in your own leadership and learning journey, in terms of who you decide to work with for your capstone.
And do we still have some space in September if people in the room are interested in our September intake?
There is still some room in the September intake, yeah. So definitely encourage folks to get their applications in. And again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out, because I'm happy to have conversations.
I could just offer a comment about the value of cohort-based learning as a distinguishing feature of Royal Roads programs. It has to be, in my experience, probably the glue that holds the entire process together. You've heard Erin talk about her peers. You've heard others. Cheryl, you've commented on cohort being a wealth of info. It's for that reason, I believe, that and a few other steps that we take around formative feedback for everybody, lots and lots of feedback, is that there's a strong desire for people to stay with their cohort. So even though they might be thinking, can I do this in the 2-year period, or am I looking at more like 3 years or what have you? There's something that happens where the cohort bonds quite intensely in the first year in particular. And to this day, I'm also a graduate of the Royal Roads on a couple of different fronts. But back in 1997, when I first graduated from Royal Roads, I'm still in regular contact with all of my colleagues from that particular cohort. It's remarkable. There's that. And also when I go travel for business, for example, I'll put out a note on LinkedIn. Hey, anybody would like to get together for dinner or a lunch, if you're in this town? And we find that there's 10, 20, 30, in one case, 90 people showed up. We had to rent a golf course just because there's such strong commitment to both place of Royal Roads University and everything that it represents for people, plus their experience of transformation and the relationships that they've built over time. I can't say enough about that. Yeah, thanks.
I see another question that came in here, so I'm going to read it out and ask it to you, Phil and Cheryl. So can you give me an example of the flexibility allowed with the program schedule and completion? And they said, if you feel better to discuss offline, absolutely connect. But I think that's a question we can talk about right now. So an example of just the flexibility allowed with the program schedule and completion, what that looks like, or if there is any flexibility.
Yeah, and there certainly is some flexibility. So that first set of courses, the first residency blended term, those courses are integrated together. So you can't take one of those three. They actually come as a package. So there's a little flexibility there in terms of taking that course. But where the flexibility comes is when you take the next courses. Like, so for Lead 516, which is the course that follows the first blended term, there's several offerings of that a year. So if the health offering doesn't work for you, we definitely could consider enrolling you in another offering. The challenge with that is that it may not be health specific, and it also may not be with your cohort. And folks really, as Phil was saying, really feel connected to their cohort. Similarly with the electives, we can move some things around there as well. And we also have some folks who have been with the cohort for the first blended experience, so that first term, and then they can't come back to campus for that second term. So we end up putting them with another group of students. So that's also a possibility. But again, that cohort draw is quite strong. So, but there's general flexibility for sure. And I think although the program is 2 years, you actually have 7 years to complete the program, but we certainly encourage you to try and finish it with your cohort, because the cohort experience is so powerful and strong.
Thank you. And I wanted to ask, are there any final words of advice or anything that you'd like to make sure that you share with the people in the room today, Phil, Cheryl, and Erin, before we wrap up today's session? And Phil, I see you unmuted, so I'll pass it over to you.
Apply now and apply often. There you go.
Okay. Erin.
I see that somebody popped up a question about how many hours per week are typically required. And I think that's a really hard question to answer, because I think it depends on who you are. For myself, I find that I really have to spend a lot of time with the content to get a full grasp of it. So, you know, what might take 5 hours for somebody could take 10 hours for me. I'd say to plan for 20 hours per week. Some weeks might be a little bit easier, depending on what's going on, like with assignments and group work and that sort of thing. And then some weeks maybe a lot more, where you're spending all of your free time and some of your sleep time doing the program. Yeah, I think that answers your question.
Yeah, that's right on. We typically say around 20 hours a week. And again, it depends on where you're, you know, it's individual and depends on each person. And I also think that changes over time. Like initially it's like learning the APA, like the APA manual to how to do that, right? Like, so there's lots of things about like, and learning to read academic articles or remembering how to read academic articles. So that can, you know, take some time in the beginning. And then once you start mastering those skills in writing, it definitely becomes easier over time.
And depending on how long you've been out of post-secondary education, you know, for me, it was 13 years or something. So getting back into it was challenging in that sense. I mentioned that I did do that academic writing and critical thinking program, and it was so valuable in giving me the tools I needed to produce academic papers moving forward, and just to give me to get me back in the game, reintroduce me to APA, and just give me some tools and some skills moving forward into the program. I think it's been super valuable.
When we were building the elective, that level of effort was something that Cheryl and I were quite conscious of. And so we also appreciate and recognize the demand on the health system right now. So there are certain periods in the course by design are lighter than others. And then there's one brief period where there's a little bit more intensity related to a team assignment. And I think, Erin, that you'd probably agree with that. But having those periods where there are fewer readings, or maybe there isn't a post required that week, but we would like you to reflect and think and be present, take care of yourself, was intentional. But we also have to keep on the radar what's required for credentialing and for the academic rigor as well. So there is a blend. Plus, we also have tremendous flexibility based on what's happening in the moment with the cohort, what's happening in society, with the university, particularly during the pandemic, as every day seems to be, let's see what's going to happen next week, right? As the reality that we're all trying to live.
I got COVID. COVID hit my family as soon as second term started for 2016. And yeah, I mean, the faculty was just so supportive and understanding that, you know, like, obviously illness is going to hit your family, and commitments outside of the program are going to come up. And so everyone is very supportive in you know, like setting you up for success. Nobody wants you to fail.
And I think just building from that, just to reinforce that if folks communicate often and early about what's going on for them, we can be very flexible and accommodating. So like reaching out and being like, this is what I'm struggling with. Like, let's figure out how we navigate that together. And I think that's one of the real strengths and gifts of Royal Roads, but this program in particular, just the support that's offered.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone here for joining us today and tuning into the webinar. And thank you, Phil, Cheryl, and Erin for sharing just your firsthand experiences and the program overview. It's very appreciated. And we will be sharing a recording with everybody in the next 24 hours. And as we've mentioned, if you have any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to reach out. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their day today. Thank you.